What if I told you that Toyota once built a race car so extreme, so powerful, that it was banned, not by the rules, but by reality itself? A car with a power-to-weight ratio that rivaled modern Formula One machines. A car that could have put Toyota at the pinnacle of motorsports, but instead, it cost lives. This wasn't just a race car. This was the Toyota 7, a machine so lethal that 2 of its drivers never made it out alive. The crashes were so severe that Toyota wiped the car from its history books, erased test footage, and even fought legal battles to keep its secrets buried. But before we get to the tragedy, we need to rewind to the 1960s, a time when Toyota wasn't the giant it is today. Back then, Nissan was dominating Japan's motorsports scene. And Toyota? They were sick of losing. What started as a quest to dethrone Nissan turned into one of the most disastrous motorsport stories of all time. This is the rise and fall of the Toyota 7, the car that killed Toyota's racing dreams. But to understand what went wrong, we have to go back to the beginning, to the golden era of Group 7 racing, where the limits of engineering were pushed, and where one wrong move could mean the end. The 1960s were a golden age for motorsports. Racing wasn't just about competition, it was about pushing the boundaries of what was possible. In this era, Group 7 racing emerged as a battleground where rules were minimal and horsepower was king. No production requirements, no restrictions on displacement, just raw, unfiltered speed. It was the Wild West of motorsports, and manufacturers jumped at the chance to build machines that would have been illegal in any other racing category. For Toyota, this was an opportunity and a challenge. At the time, Toyota was known for reliable family cars, not high-performance race machines. Their biggest rival, Nissan, had already proven itself on the track, setting land speed records and taking podiums at the Japanese Grand Prix. But Toyota wasn't about to sit on the sidelines. If Nissan was building a monster, Toyota was going to build something even scarier. So they turned to Yamaha, a company already making a name for itself in high-performance engineering. Together, they began developing something radical, a prototype that would mark Toyota's first serious step into high-stakes racing. The result? The Toyota 7 415S, a car designed to take on Nissan's dominant R380 series. It looked the part, a sleek, low-slung body designed for maximum aerodynamics. Underneath, it packed a 3-liter V8, developed entirely by Toyota. And instead of using an American-built engine like Nissan, Toyota was determined to prove that they could do it themselves. On paper, the Toyota 7 had everything it needed to be a champion. But in motorsports, the paper doesn't win races, and Toyota was about to learn that lesson the hard way. The stage was set. The 1968 Japanese Grand Prix was just around the corner. And Toyota? They were about to face the toughest opponent they had ever encountered. What followed was a disaster. By 1968, Toyota had its weapon, the Toyota 7415S. It was sleek, aggressive, and built to win. But across the pit lane, Nissan had an even deadlier machine. Meet the Nissan R381, a brutal powerhouse with a 5.5-liter Chevrolet 5.8 pumping out 450 horsepower. But power wasn't its only advantage. The R381 had something revolutionary: a split rear wing, adjustable by the driver. In an era before computerized aerodynamics, this was groundbreaking. Nissan could change the car's balance mid-race, optimizing it for speed on straights and grip in corners. It was inspired by Chaparral's wild American race cars, and in the right hands, it was nearly unstoppable. Toyota knew they were in trouble. The 1968 Japanese Grand Prix arrived, and the tension was electric. Toyota lined up 4 Toyota 7s against 2 brand-new Nissan R381-7s and 3 older R380 models. But as the engines roared to life, it became clear: Toyota was outgunned. Qualifying was a disaster. Toyota's best lap time was 2 seconds slower than their own test times, all because of the extra weight added for structural reinforcements. Worse? The fastest Toyota 7 was 5 seconds slower than Nissan's R381. And then came the main race day. A nightmare for Toyota. One by one, the Toyota 7s fell apart. One suffered a tire blowout. Another had oil pressure issues. One struggled with suspension and drive shaft failures. The final car overheated so badly that it couldn't even finish. Toyota's best finisher? 8th place. Meanwhile, Nissan's R381S crushed the competition, taking 1st and 2nd place. Toyota had entered the Grand Prix with dreams of victory. They left with a brutal wake-up call. For most companies, this would have been the end. But Toyota? They don't back down that easily. Losing to Nissan wasn't an option. Moreover, this was just their first try. They went back to the drawing board, and what they came up with next was so extreme, so powerful, that it would push the limits of engineering itself. What Toyota didn't know yet, though, was that they were also pushing the limits of human survival. The 1968 Japanese Grand Prix opened Toyota's eyes to a lot of flaws. Their biggest rival, Nissan, had destroyed them, not just with speed, but with pure technological dominance. The Toyota 7 was too heavy, too fragile, and simply not fast enough. Now, to the drawing board, Toyota's engineers had a new set of missions: fix the weaknesses, increase the power, and build a machine that could finally beat Nissan. The first thing to go was the monocoque chassis. It was too heavy, too rigid, and not built for the brutal forces of Group 7 racing. Instead, Toyota switched to a lighter and stronger tube frame chassis, allowing for better weight distribution and durability. Then, they refined the aerodynamics, testing the new design in Daihatsu's state-of-the-art wind tunnel. But the biggest upgrade? The engine. The old 3-liter V8 wasn't going to cut it. Toyota needed more power. A lot more. This time, they took inspiration from the British-American Ford Cosworth DFV, a dominant engine in Formula One. Toyota built a new 5-liter V8, an absolute monster that produced 537 horsepower. That was 76% more powerful than the original Toyota 7. And just like that, the Toyota 7 was reborn. But while Toyota was sharpening its sword, Nissan wasn't sitting still. They had just unleashed their own beast, the R382. The 1969 Japanese Grand Prix was about to become a full-scale war between Toyota and Nissan. This time, Toyota had power. This time, they had the speed. But was it enough? The 1969 Japanese Grand Prix was Toyota's chance for redemption. The new Toyota 7 was faster, more powerful, and more refined than ever. With 537 horsepower and a lightweight tube-frame chassis, it finally had the raw speed to challenge Nissan's dominance. And it showed. Toyota outperformed Porsche's entries and proved that they belonged at the top of Japan's motorsport scene. But there was one problem. Nissan was still faster. With their new R382, equipped with a 6-liter V12 producing 600 horsepower, Nissan once again claimed victory, taking 1st and 2nd place. Toyota had closed the gap, but they hadn't won. And that's when they snapped. If 600 horsepower wasn't enough, then Toyota would build something even more extreme. Something that would obliterate Nissan. Something that no driver had ever experienced before. The Toyota 7578A. If the previous Toyota 7 was a race car, this was a missile on wheels. The upgrades were terrifying. The tube-frame chassis was now made from aluminum, reducing weight even further. Titanium-magnesium alloys replaced steel in the suspension, gearbox housing, and drive shaft, making it lighter and stronger. Final weight at just 620 kilograms. And then came the real madness. Toyota strapped on 2 massive Garrett turbochargers to the 5-liter V8, pushing it to a mind-blowing 811 horsepower. That's more power than modern F1 cars, in a machine that weighed less than a Mazda Miata. And here's the scary part. All 811 horsepower went straight to the rear wheels. This was beyond dangerous. This was beyond rational. This was Toyota, completely unhinged. They had created the most powerful race car Japan had ever seen, but in doing so, unknowingly had also created a death trap. The Toyota 7 Turbo was ready to race. 811 horsepower, 620 kilograms, twin turbos, an absolute monster. But there was one small problem. It was completely uncontrollable. During early testing, drivers struggled to keep the car stable. The insane power-to-weight ratio made it nearly impossible to control at full throttle. One wrong move, one mechanical failure, and it would be game over. And that's exactly what happened. It was February 12, 1969. Toyota was testing the Toyota 7 Turbo prototype at a private session. Behind the wheel, Sachio Fukutawa, a seasoned test driver who had been with Toyota from the beginning, but this time he wouldn't make it out alive. Witnesses say that Fukutawa lost control on a high-speed straight, veered off the track, and crashed directly into a metal sign. The car flipped multiple times, and then it exploded into flames. By the time the rescue team arrived, it was too late. Fukutawa was trapped inside, burning alive in the wreckage. But here's where things get even more disturbing. Toyota refused to release any crash footage. They didn't allow police to inspect the wreckage. They claimed it contained trade secrets that couldn't be made public. Instead, they blamed Fukutawa, saying the crash was caused by driver error. His family didn't accept that answer. They took Toyota to court, and after 12 years of legal battles, won a settlement of 61 million yen. But the truth? Still unknown. And if that wasn't enough to stop Toyota, the second tragedy did. August 26, 1970. Minoru Kawai was Toyota's last remaining veteran driver. He had survived the brutal losses of 1968, witnessed the comeback in 1969, and now he was the only one left. If anyone could tame the 800-horsepower beast, it was him. But Suzuka Circuit had other plans. Toyota had officially registered for the Can-Am Cup in the United States. They were ready to take their death machine overseas. But just hours after submitting their entry, disaster struck. During a high-speed test lap, Kawai entered Turn 9 with full throttle. But as he approached Turn 10, one of Suzuka's most dangerous corners, he realized something was wrong. His throttle was stuck. At first, it wasn't a problem. The next section was a straight, so he had time to try and fix it. But before he could slow down, he was already accelerating past 200 kilometers per hour. With no way to brake, no way to slow down, Kawai's Toyota 7 Turbo slammed into the next corner at full speed. The car disintegrated on impact. Kawai was thrown 16 feet into the air. By the time paramedics reached him, it was too late. He died in the hospital 30 minutes later. He was just 27 years old. This was the final straw for Toyota. 2 drivers dead. A car too powerful to control. This wasn't a race car. It was a weapon. And Toyota wanted nothing more to do with it. The Japanese Grand Prix 1970 was cancelled. And with it, Toyota's entire racing program was shut down. They pulled out of all motorsports, leaving behind a machine so dangerous it was never raced again. The Toyota 7 Turbo vanished, and for 7 years, Toyota refused to step back onto the racetrack. But the damage was already done. Toyota had built a car that should never have existed, and 2 of their own had paid the ultimate price. The Toyota 7 Turbo was a machine that pushed the limits of engineering, and in doing so, pushed past the limits of safety. It was supposed to be Toyota's ultimate race car, the weapon that would finally crush Nissan. Instead, it became the car that killed Toyota's racing dreams. For 7 years, Toyota stayed away from the racetrack. The Toyota 7 Turbo was buried, erased from history, with no official recognition from Toyota itself. And when Toyota finally returned to motorsports, they took a different approach, focusing on reliability, endurance, and precision, rather than pure, uncontrollable power. But looking back, can we really blame Toyota? They had created a monster, a car with more power than drivers could handle, more speed than tracks could contain. Maybe the Toyota 7 Turbo wasn't a failure. Maybe it was just too far ahead of its time. If you enjoyed this deep dive into one of the most extreme race cars ever built, make sure to subscribe for more insane automotive stories. And remember, sometimes pushing the limits doesn't just break records, it breaks everything. Don't forget to hit the like button and click on this link to watch our next video.